You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Cricket Podcast for our review of the second day of the fourth test between India and England. I'm Jack Hope and as usual I'm joined by Max Rowe Brown. Max, how are you doing?
Hi Jack, yeah, very good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, my friend. And Ross Legg, how are you doing, Ross Legg?
Another day of cricket, and the test match isn't over, so we've got more to wake up to tomorrow on the weekend. So come on,
that is true. We've got a whole Saturday morning of fun to look forward to. It was a gripping day at the test, which swung wildly one way and then back the other way. Just a quick first thought from you both, then, fellas. How far into the distance do you think India are at this point, Max?
I think they're far enough into the distance that England will be hoping that they can make India bat again.
Okay, yeah. So trying to not lose by an innings. Ross, What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair assessment. I think they might probably be a little bit gutted at the moment. India left the door open for them, and England walked in the other direction. So.
Before we get into it in loads of detail, Ross, do you want to give us a few messages for the listeners?
Yep, you should like and subscribe on YouTube and follow us on @thecricketpod on Twitter and Instagram, and leave comments, get in touch with us. We will respond as Jack has nothing better to do.
Right then, Max, as usual, you're going to give us the Mac summary, which is crying out for sponsorship, isn't it?
Yeah, Big Mac summary.
Outros. Yeah, Grand Big Mac. That's back. I'm doing it for them already.
Yeah, go on, after you.
Yeah. Okay. So India started the day looking to kick on from their position of 24 for 1 overnight, and to be honest, they never really did. England bowled very, very well, kept the run rate down, kept things tight, and took wickets at regular intervals, which very much held up the Indian advance. And it got to a stage where it was pretty even, really. India's innings was very much mirroring what England put together yesterday, and then Rishabh Pant turned up and played just a sublime innings, and really, really put his foot on the gas, and really rubbed England's noses into the dirt. To be honest, poor old Ben Stokes was dropping the ball and falling around and chugging water, and Dom Bess's face was rather beetroot-like by the end. And overall, it was as you said, Jack, a bit of a topsy-turvy day, swinging sort of towards England and then very, very swiftly in the other direction. And I think there will be a few downbeat England spirits in the dressing room at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely, Max. Rishabh Pant turned up. The way you said that makes it sound like he just got out of his car sort of 2 hours into the innings and then scored 100 in his trainers.
I mean, if anyone is going to do that, it's Rishabh Pant, isn't it? That's very much fits the model of how he plays.
Yeah, it was a fantastic day's play. It started with India well on top, and then, as you say, Max, England probably at certain points in the day, maybe even nudged themselves in front before the Pant show. It's a cliche, but there was a real ebb and flow. I thought, to the cricket. Chronologically, then, let's start with the morning. Ross, good fight back from England initially.
Yeah, I think we said in yesterday's show that the only way England were going to get back into this is with some quick wickets, and the prospects of Kohli hitting another century was a bit too daunting for them. Fortunately, his run of form kind of continued, and a big old 0 for Kohli, which is really sad for every cricket fan.
I think what was such feeling.
I think what was interesting was England. The spirit was there, that the fight was there from England, and I wouldn't say like you'd use the hyperbole of roaring back, but I kind of said that India did leave the door open for them there, but I think they just ran out of steam. I think there was too much on Anderson, there was too much on Stokes, too much on Leach, and operating with 3 bowlers in this heat, I just think was a bit too much for them. And picking Dom Bess, as we said yesterday, has proved to be an absolute disaster stroke.
Yeah, before we get into the selection, because I think that logically is the next place to go. Let's talk a little bit more about what happened before lunch, because I think we sort of said that England would need to take a load of early wickets, and they actually had India 80 for 4 at lunch. Stokes, I don't know how much you saw of this you two saw, but he bowled this mega spell to open the day. I think it was 10 or 11 overs on the bounce in 38-degree heat. This is why he was like bright red later on, because like all of the blood vessels in his face had like burst from the amount of effort he put in the morning. And he really caused loads of problems for India. Obviously, he sort of bounced out Kohli, and he got that booming in-swinger to come back and get Rohit Sharma just after lunch. But that effort was pretty incredible. And then sort of Leach was really good at the other end as well, asking a few questions. Obviously, he picked up Pujara. Pujara, I think, is probably, Leach's bunny. At this point, I think that's the 4th time in the series.
And Pujara's got a reasonably good record against spin, right?
Absolutely, yeah. He's a fantastic player against spin. I think probably one of the best 5 or 6 players in the world. So if you're going to have a bunny and you're a spinner, Pujara,
it's a good one to have.
It's a great one to have. It's an absolutely great one to have. Just on Leach, I think what was noticeable, particularly to Pujara, he bowled loads quicker. So Pujara, as we discussed yesterday at some length, his party trick, if you like, is to sort of skip down the wicket and knock it through the onside. He just wasn't really able to do that. And even from ball 1, so I think Leach planned his bowling to Pujara really well. The first ball, I don't know, did you see what he did first up?
No, I didn't.
Just before you woke up, I imagine. I was up for the whole thing. Leach's first ball, he bowled maybe a yard down leg side, really fast, and folks had moved before the ball had been bowled, and I think they obviously thought we can maybe get Pujara
stumping out.
Yeah. And in the end,
I like it.
I don't know if it got in Pujara's head or what happened, but I think Pujara was dropped as well just after that, and then eventually out LBW. I guess he did. Leach, you have to say 10 out of 10 working out Pujara there. And then Anderson, of course, had figures of 7 for 2 at lunch. Which so everything was coming down England, wasn't it?
So Jack, you said you kind of woke up early to watch it. How was Rohit Sharma's innings? Because Rohit's obviously dominated kind of the last 2 Test matches and pretty much won them for India, other than England's batting. So what was Rohit Sharma like? Because we got nearly 50.
Well, I was literally about to come on to that. So it's great how we're all focused here. We've got ideas bouncing around. This is top podcasting. Basically, Rohit was the best player in the top 5, and he has been in the series so far. He sort of continued his dominance. I think the difference was that he looked a little bit more cautious. Now, I don't know whether that was because he thought that if he gave India a platform, they'd only have to bat once, or whether the pitch actually looked a lot harder than it appeared, or actually was harder to bat on than it appeared watching, because it looked pretty all right, to be honest. Or whether it was because, and I think probably this is really what it was, that England bowled really well. And they just didn't, whilst, as opposed to other points in the series, where Rohit's been able to get on top of them and really punish the bad balls, England just didn't bowl badly at all. All morning they were on the money. And that meant that Rohit didn't have that many opportunities to score. Now, what I think you can say is that he didn't try and force it at any point. He was sort of happy that was the situation. Looked, I think, most comfortable of the Indian batters. And what did he get? 49. Pretty unlucky not to get what would have been an excellent 50, I think, in the face of some excellent bowling. That's sort of how I summarise it.
Yeah, and it was a bit of excellent bowling that ultimately undid him.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, talk us through that, Max.
Well, it was the classic setup, wasn't it? Well, they like to tell you all about a bowler bowling to a plan. Ben Stokes bowled, he was on sort of line and length outside off stump. A couple just holding their line, a couple going away. Just setting Rohit Sharma up for that last ball, which took the wicket, which hooped in. It probably started the widest of all the balls he bowled in that over, and it just absolutely flew back in towards Rohit's off stump and pinned him in front. It was a brilliant bit of bowling. Arguably, he was a little unfortunate to be given out on the field. Bearing in mind where it hit him, but it was umpire's call, and that is sort of the nature of DRS as it stands at the moment. And it was, he luck or not, it was excellent work from Ben Stokes, and just a really good bit of cricket all round.
I think Rohit suffered a little bit from a good ball tax.
Yeah.
If you get what I mean. Sometimes when the umpire sees a really good ball, even if it's marginal, they just sort of say, "Oh, fair play, mate," and give it.
You can have that one. Yeah.
Because it was the best ball of the day, to be honest, wasn't it? Like you say, I mean, I think if it's umpire's call on high and on outside the line, Rohit's it's probably fair enough for him to be a little bit annoyed that it was given on the field, but. We saw Bairstow go to something similar.
And I still think umpire's call is the right thing to have. I think there's a lot of on Twitter recently. It's been just like, oh, we should get rid of umpire's call. It's either out or it's not.
I mean, that's nonsense.
I mean, just look at how badly VAR's been used with offside and all that kind of stuff. I think it's a really good decision, and I think they should continue to use it.
Anyway. I mean, if we got rid of umpire's call, we would have 2-day tests as the norm.
So transitioning then from what was a fantastic morning from England, I think. What you have to say for over both innings is that the score, it's been hard to bat because of the quality of the bowling, just as it was yesterday for England with the bats, as they struggled up to 200. It was similarly difficult, if not harder even, for India in the morning and sort of the first half, or maybe the whole of the afternoon session. However, that's where things started to get a little bit tricky for England, because as you sort of tipped, Ross, it became clear in that sort of 38-degree heat that maybe picking sort of two informed frontline bowlers, Ben Stokes and a guy that you publicly dropped 2 weeks ago, might not have been great selection from England.
Yeah, I think with Dom Bess he's on a hiding to nothing. If he does well, he's got come on, but he's got so much pressure on him to do well. England have handled him really quite poorly, and I think if there was one opportunity for them to bring in that other spinner or even keep another seamer, they've got Ollie Stone, Mark Wood, and Jofra Archer all available to them. This was it. But Dom Bess's batting got him in with the classic England selection policy of just a frontline bowler, but he can bat a little bit, so let's bring him in. I think he didn't look too comfortable. He's bowling, Max, I think you were texting us earlier saying that how many full tosses is this bloke actually going to bowl? And I thought it was quite funny on Twitter seeing, does Dom Bess actually just not practice on a 22-yard pitch?
He's bowling on the kids' pitches. I feel really sorry for Dom Bess. I mean, at the start, I would openly admit in Sri Lanka and at the start of the series, I was fairly hard on him. I doubt that's got to him too much. I'm probably thinking he doesn't pay any attention to what I have to say about him. But I wasn't exactly complimentary about his bowling. But at this stage, I feel extremely bad for him. Just given, like you say, Ross, how England have handled him, it's not been well done. Thrown him back in, and he's clearly shot. It's clearly, it's just too much to deal with.
I also think Root's captaincy's been okay throughout this kind of test series. I think he's got a couple of things wrong, some good things right, as you do every single time with being a captain. But opening up with Dom Bess straight after lunch was a mistake. That was the bit where England really needed to press home their advantage, and that was the bit to go, right, Anderson, you've got to produce something with this old ball, or right, Stokes, and Stokes had flogged it, as you'd kind of said, Jack. But that was the bit where they hit 40 runs in about 6 overs, and that was the bit that switched the momentum right into India's favour, I think.
Yeah, you kind of have to show a vote of confidence in him, though, don't you? You've picked him to be that bowler, and it's difficult to then pick him. And if you need him later on, having not gone to him in a moment where you probably would need that kind of bowler, would have been even more of a hammer to his confidence. But ultimately, as it was, he bowled very poorly, and Joe Root ended up being the go-to off spinner when it was needed. So it didn't exactly work out.
Joe Root's just not a ruthless captain. That comes down to it. Should have cut him.
So I think, to be honest, I don't think he should. Well, I think clearly he shouldn't have been in the team. I think so. It's hard to articulate sometimes where exactly a bad selection really hits a team. Sometimes it's a kind of an abstract thing. But here, I think, Ross, you've identified one point, and then there's another point as well, where basically England ran out of bowlers. So just after lunch, they had to bowl Bess because they needed to get through some overs with him. And then with about 15 overs to go until the new ball, There was a little spell where England were obviously trying not to use Stokes or Anderson so that they could bring them back on to hopefully clear up the tail. And that meant they kind of had to try either Bess or Root. And let's be honest, Root didn't bowl very well either. Root looked like the part-timer that he is on a wicket that didn't offer him the help that he got in the third test.
Yeah, there's some more evidence for the people shouting about the last test match.
And then with about 15 overs to go, India went from, what were they, 50 behind or something like that, to 20 ahead by the time that England or India took that new nut. And I it was just quite frustrating. To watch as a cricket fan, a team or to watch a game that was really in the balance and was really engaging, just drift. It wasn't even that hard for the last 15 overs with Sundar and Pant batting together against the England bowlers. It was either Bess or Root trying their best, or Leach bowling this sort of ridiculous defensive line into the batter's pads and going for like sort of 3 and over.
We revert to the Ashley Giles tactic, did we?
Well, basically that's what happened, yeah. And then they went back to Stokes anyway.
Yeah.
A few people on Twitter wanted to talk about him. I mean, I don't think really there's much you can say besides that
knackered.
He was Ross. You're saying he isn't a ruthless captain. Well, he's pretty ruthless in the way he used Stokes.
All we can say is it's a good job that Jofra Archer wasn't picked, because he would have been down to his knees by now.
So the Stokes thing is interesting, and I think there's a couple of bits just before moving on from Dom Bess that was on the commentary team. The commentary has been again shocking, like it's been absolutely.
I've stopped
awful.
listening to it. I just listened to it on silent.
But what was funny,
cricket boys.
Yeah, one of the funniest things I heard was that Dom Bess will receive plenty of thank you notes from the Indian batsman, and that was the snippet of commentary which I enjoyed the most. But then it was immediately followed, by the Stokes versus Ashwin debate. Did you hear this? 15 minutes on commentary, they were deciding whether Stokes or Ashwin was the better all-rounder, and I was sitting there just like, why are you talking about this? There's no point in talking about this. Anyway. I think there's nothing to take away from how good Rishabh Pant was in the whole innings. It showed a maturity that I don't think we'd seen in this test match or this test series. He'd kind of come out, lived and died by the sword. We saw him get out a couple of stupid times, but here, mature innings followed by some brutal hitting. So
followed by classic Pant. It was everything.
Well, that is the sort of next point in the day, isn't it? So after England's selection issues undermined what had been a fantastic effort through the first half of the day, they kind of ran out of steam, and Pant managed to get through an initial sort of tricky spell where England were maybe on top, and then got through to the new ball, at which point, I mean, he just dismantled England, didn't he? Really took the game away from them, Max.
Yeah, I think the brilliant thing about Pant's innings was how he paced it. And it was a classic example of a proper gritty test match innings for the first 50 runs or so, where people would say that Pant doesn't play the situation very well and will just always go out and do what he wants to do. But actually, what he did today was show everyone that he is a proper batsman and absolutely dug in and played that sort of period of the game perfectly. And he also identified exactly the point when he needed to go on the attack and counter-attack, where England's bowlers had clearly started to flag a bit. And I think it was about 4 or 5 overs or so just before England took the new ball that he really started to accelerate and make the most of the old ball while it was still there, with the danger of a new ball coming, and then utilising the fact that obviously we all know the new ball is harder and will fly off the bat a bit more. And the way he attacked Anderson and Stokes with that new ball off the bat basically meant that they didn't bowl very well with the new ball either. So it was really a combination of things that Pant put together perfectly, and it was we've seen it so many times in this series, a match-winning innings. We had it with Root in the first test, Rohit Sharma in the second test, and here I think you can probably say that Rishabh Pant has won them the game.
Yeah,
I think so.
I think England, sorry, Jack, I think England fans could also, you can look at some of Ben Stokes' innings over the years of going, right, what does a good left-hander's innings look like, where you play the situation and then be brutal? And that is what Rishabh Pant, I'm stuck in the joke of Rishabh Pant, did here.
Yeah, I think you can juxtapose to some extent his innings here with the one in Chennai in the first test of the series when he got into the 90s and then sort of for no real reason got out caught at deep extra cover. And we really hammered him on this show. We couldn't understand why he would, as the last recognised batsman in that Indian side, effectively throw his wicket away when he had the opportunity to put India back in that game, or at least make the England victory unlikely by either batting time or scoring a bunch of runs. None of that today, though. Like while things were tricky when he was batting with Washington Sundar and Ashwin, he was careful. And then, those first two shots he played off the new ball. So going down the pitch, first ball against James Anderson and absolutely leathering it back over his head. And then he carved the second one through the covers. Yeah,
and also I think we have to mention at this point the reverse paddle over the slips.
Yeah, we got this on Twitter from Ashwin Widge. I've never seen anyone do that before.
It was brilliant. It was straight out the IPL, wasn't it?
So, and this is the bit I think it's really good that we kind of see the talismanic innings that kind of it was played by Pant there, but then he had the perfect foil in Washington Sundar. Missed kind of TFC from the last game for India, but the selection of Washington Sundar has been the right one. And actually, he's played really well, and he's got 60 odd not out, exactly what India needed, and he's proving to be a very handy lower order batsman and not too bad with the ball as well.
He was the Robin to Pants' Batman today.
He averages more than Kohli at the moment, Washington Sundar. So
hashtag drop Kohli. Keep Rahane.
Watch out, Virat. It was, Sundar's innings as well was really good.
I think Washington Sundar it always makes me laugh because whenever they cut to a shot of Washington Sundar while he's batting, he looks like he doesn't know where he is. He looks like perplexed. He looks completely confused. It's just like he's just got this sort of look on his face of like, what's going on? And I mean, obviously he's really good at batting, so that's nothing to do with it. It's just I just find it quite funny.
Is it like the Dom Sibley face of confusion where his whole face seems to like scrunch up?
No, it's sort of the opposite with like eyebrows raised and like,
like the bear style.
Yeah.
There a couple more things on Pant. He went to his century with monster 6 off Joe Root.
Love it.
He moved so there's a list of Indian players to go to a century with a 6. Guess who's number 1 on that list?
Rishabh Pant.
No. It's Tendulkar. They're basically any question related to batting. That's most off question. You can go with Tendulkar, and whether it's high or low, he's accomplished most of the stats just because of his length in the game. But Rishabh Pant is second on that list with 2, alongside Gautam Gambhir and Rohit Sharma. And he was really angry when he was out, which is a good sign, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you shouldn't be happy when you're out. Ever.
He was really I thought he was going to.
He did well. That was probably the cleanest he'd hit one for a couple of overs. That one, he just absolutely smacked it straight at Joe Root.
It was a good catch actually. Right, so there's a couple more things that we had on the twit. So the Aston Big Cricket Podcast asking, should Rishabh Pant bat at 5, move Rahane down to 6? Would that be a good idea for India?
I think we talked about Rahane on the last one, and Rahane needed some runs. He got a start here. I didn't see the wicket for Rahane, but I'm just going to assume that he threw it away when he got to 28.
He was caught at second slip, actually, just before lunch.
And that's the issue at the moment, right? With I think quite a lot of India's batting lineup, they haven't had to bat that much this series because England have been so poor. They haven't had to go on and post those big 500 odd scores. But still, the issue remains of what that lineup looks like where come England. So it's going to be down to how well people bat overseas, and we'll see that. I think Rishabh Pant is perfect at 6, though.
Yeah, so they have moved him up to 5. I think he batted at 5 in Chennai, didn't he? In one of the innings, and he
batted a bit higher in some of the Australia tests as well.
Yeah,
but
he did. Yeah,
selection issues there.
Yeah. In England though, I don't think he can bat in the top 5. I basically don't think you can play some of the shots he played. in English conditions against fast bowlers. You have to sort of reevaluate your game.
Well, we're going to see.
Particularly if, well, that's what I mean, because India's next 5 tests are England, in England. So I think he'd be a little bit exposed, but you never know. I mean, like he looked pretty good today, didn't he? So
Yeah,
I doubt he's going to be that scared.
I don't think there's any need. I don't see what it would add swapping the two. I don't think it really. I mean, if you're going to sort of play that kind of game, you don't have to have a fixed batting lineup, do you? You can play the game as it is slightly. So if, for example, India were 200 for 3 and the ball was 50 overs old, then why not shunt Pant up one? But
it's also a thing, right? India have crushed England in the last 2 test matches. They're probably going to crush them in this test match. And people are going, should we move Pant around? He's been pretty good. Should we move? We're not winning quite as enough as we should be. It's good. Like, what is the point in that?
It's a very England cricket way of looking at things, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Final question then from Gautam. What's gone wrong with England's spinners on this tour, especially Bess? Expected better stuff from them. Max, what's gone wrong?
Well, where do we start? Actually, well, why don't we start with positives in that actually Jack Leach has done really well. He started in Sri Lanka a bit off, got better in that series and has continued to improve and is now bowling pretty nicely and quite tight in keeping things under wraps and taking some good wickets. So that's a positive. I mean, for Dom Bess, we've been through it already today, haven't we? It's he had a bit of a tough time at the start, and then England really didn't manage that very well. Publicly dropped him, publicly tried to get the other guy to stay for longer so they didn't have to play him again, and then were forced to play him again. And that'll, you could have all the self-confidence in the world, and that's still going to get you a bit. So I think there's a mixture of perhaps not quite good enough, whether that's yet or at all, I wouldn't want to venture the answer to, but added to the mental pressure, it's a perfect storm.
I think he'll come back, right? I think he'll come back eventually, but I think it was the wrong decision to put him into this test. But Graham Swan had an early start in England career, didn't play for a number of years, and came back and was England's best ever spinner.
Side note on Graham Swan, I never thought I would be desperate for him to come back onto the commentary. That is what I find myself doing when I'm watching these test matches.
I think the thing with Swan though is that he was dropped because he didn't get on with Duncan Fletcher because he kept turning up late and like being Graham Swan. I don't know whether Dom Bess was dropped for being Dom Bess. By all accounts, people seem to quite like Dom Bess.
Yeah, and he definitely works hard.
Yeah, but I you have to wonder, really, what the role for a guy who bowls a full toss and over is in Test cricket. He needs to what else he brings to the game.
He needs to go back, work on some things. It may be that he's been trying to tweak too many things on the fly during the series, and it's thrown him off. It's a very technical art. So just go back, work on it, get some confidence in the county game, and he'll probably get another chance when England have been through another 3 spinners that don't work out over the next 3 years.
Take all those wickets on the notoriously turning Headingley, where he now plays.
Yeah. Cool.
That was an interesting move.
Last couple of minutes then. Let's have a quick chat about tomorrow, boys. England are going to lose. India are India are almost certainly going to win this, aren't they? Can you give me a prediction, Max, on what you think is going to happen tomorrow, and whether there's any chance of a little bit more ebb or flow on day 3?
I think there'll be a little bit of a moment in England's innings where it looks like I reckon we'll put together a little partnership where you might have a glimmer that we could put together a score where India might have to chase like 100, and then it will all go horribly wrong, and we'll be 7 down by the end of the day, and we'll come back on the 4th day to wrap it all up. And that's my prediction.
Ross?
I think the benefit is England will bat tomorrow. I think if India had batted longer and put England in on a 4th day, you'd be bowled out for under 100. But the fact that England have now picked 9.5 batsmen, if you like, in this lineup, this is the time where they need to earn their money. If England fold and get bowled out for 100, there is going to be how after every Pakistani defeat there is like an inquest and like an administrative kind of view. It might well be as severe as that, maybe. But I'm sure Chris Silverwood, Joe Root will still retain their positions. But selection what a disaster.
Yeah.
That's a good way of distracting from rotation policy, isn't it? Getting it wrong anyway.
We're just going to rotate Ed Smith out of the selection team, and we're going to bring in someone else. He needs a break.
So I think England will manage to take it to a day 4. I think just the length of their batting lineup, and actually on a pitch where you can bat, I mean, they shouldn't be too worried. I mean, I think they've already surrendered too many runs to really post anything serious. Even if they took all 4 wickets for nothing, or all 3 wickets for nothing, whatever it is, in the morning, then they'll need to get 250 to even have a chance. Which probably is a bit of a long shot. I think, like, final point on the selection, and this is a counterfactual question, and one we maybe should have covered earlier, really. Rishabh Pant survived really close LBW on ball tracking, DRS, when England reviewed, looked like Dom Bess had him. And it was one of those ones where the bottom of the bail groove is considered the top of the stumps. So if you look at it visually, it looks wrong that it was given not out. But it was given not out, because there's some unknowns around bounce with DRS. Had that been given, do you think we'd be saying England have got the perfect team here? They've got 9 batters. They only need a few bowlers to bowl India out in the 4th innings, or do you think a lot of the conversation would still be the same? And perhaps Axar Patel and Washington Sundar would have dug in and scored loads of runs anyway?
I think, Washington Sundar's batted really well, and I've not seen any sign that we're going to get him out. So I think there would still have been a bit of a way to go for us to do that. And I can't help but sit here thinking that this game's crying out for Mark Wood, just to come in and bowl really fast at people.
It's a pitch it's got a bit for everything, this pitch, hasn't it? It's a good one.
I mean, Kohli was out with the bouncer. I think, there's clearly some pace in it. So
did you see the way Ashwin was given out, caught behind off his shoulder? But he played the bouncer, probably one of the worst I've ever seen in my life. He closed his eyes and then put his hands in the way, and had no idea where the ball was, but just like, that's hit my shoulder, not my bat, mate. Good.
Ross, your answer on that counterfactual question: if Pant had been given out and England had been lucky there, would we be cheering England on right now?
No, I don't think we would have, actually. I agree with Max in terms of we've still got to get 2 pretty handy players out in Axar and Sundar after that. And I also think that Dom Bess's performance throughout the Test matches hasn't been good enough anyway. He hasn't justified his place with the bat, hasn't
He's
justified
gone
his place
over
with
4 and over.
Yeah, it's just not good enough. And I also think people will moan about not getting that LBW decision, but England, as we said earlier, got fortunate with the Rohit Sharma one, and umpiring general, you have to take the rough with the smooth. So I think we'd still be chastising Dom Bess on this podcast.
Great summary then. Fellas, we'll be back tomorrow, although Max might not be because he's buying a new house.
Hey.
Ross and I will be back tomorrow anyway. And
who's going to do the Max summary?
We need a new Max, so if anyone knows a Max out there, let's bring him in. Otherwise, Ross, really quickly with some messages because it's gone on a little bit too long now.
Yeah, like, subscribe, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Cricket Pod.
Perfecto. Goodbye, everyone. See you tomorrow.
See ya.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
I think it was a disgraceful performance, and I think it should never be permitted to happen again.